It is Monday, January 25th, 2021, and we are live. Hope everybody's doing well. Today has been a very busy weekend. Seems like I was just here yesterday, and I was just here yesterday. We did our Sunday night show. So we had a great show on our Sunday night show, and we talked about the film One Night in Miami. So a lot of people watching that rebroadcast on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network, on our YouTube channel. We would broadcast these shows throughout the day. So check that out. We talked about the movie One Night in Miami. That is a fictitious account of a meeting between Cassius Clay, who earlier that day won the heavyweight championship from Sonny Liston on February 25th, 1964. Sam Cooke, Jim Brown, and also Malcolm X. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the movie today and reference something that I talked about yesterday. So on yesterday's show, I talked about a scene where Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali, Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali, and Sam Cooke were talking about power and black power, and that's what people wanted, black power. Now, this was in 1964, February 25th, 1964, before the Black Power movement started. And I referenced the March Against Fear, in June of 1966, and the Kwame Ture, Stokely Carmichael, talking about Black Power, the speech that he gave, which really pushed the Black Power ideology into the forefront. Okay, and this is before the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense was founded. Okay, so we're going to talk some more about that today. That was June 26, 1966, when Kwame Ture gave that speech. Okay, June 26, 1966 in Mississippi. All right, so we'll talk about that, and then I saw an article today. The cause of death. We talked about Hank Aaron passing away last Friday on the 22nd, I think that was, and cause of death has been released now. So we'll give you an update on what's going on with that. With Hank Aaron, hammering Hank Aaron, home run king for a long time, and for many people, he still is the home run king. 755 home runs. Then also, so much going on today. It's a manic Monday, busy news day. So I posted an article today. A lot of people getting a kick out of it. Dominion voting systems. They are suing Rudy Giuliani. They're suing Rudy Giuliani for $1.3 billion. It's a defamation lawsuit, $1.3 billion. So Rudy Giuliani, we know, has been going around lying about Dominion voting systems, spreading these idiotic conspiracy theories about how the Dominion voting systems was involved in a scheme, and they switched votes over, their voting machine switched votes over from Donald Trump to Joe Biden. And this is part of the reason why Donald Trump lost. All right. Well, the empire striking back, and they're hitting him with a $1.3 billion defamation lawsuit in damages for his demonstrably false allegations about the company's voting machines. Now, they already hit the other idiotic lawyer, Sidney Powell. They hit her with a $1.3 billion defamation lawsuit. I think that was in December. Okay, December 2020. And now we see little Rudy got one also. All right, so we'll see what happens there. Then news came out today that the Biden administration is going to go ahead with plans to put Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill. Now, this was supposed to happen in the year 2020. It was coinciding with the 100th year anniversary of the 19th Amendment, which guaranteed the right to vote for women. And it was put on hold by Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin under the Trump administration. Okay. Steve Mnuchin didn't want to do that. Trump didn't want to do that because what it was going to do was it was going to remove Andrew Jackson off President Andrew Jackson, white supremacist president. It was going to remove Andrew Jackson off of the $20 bill, and it was going to replace Andrew Jackson with Harriet Tubman. Well, Andrew Jackson was Donald Trump's favorite president. Imagine that, one white supremacist president who loved another white supremacist president. So Trump didn't like it, and his Treasury Secretary, Steve Mnuchin, said they were not going to do it, cited concerns dealing with counterfeiting, and said they were not going to make the change. So we'll discuss that as well. And what was behind all of it? This came about, and also there were going to be changes made to the $5 bill. Originally, going back to 2016, there were going to be changes made to the $5 bill. Dr. King was going to be put on the $5 bill, as well as famous African-American singer Marian Anderson. Okay. And that came about from people voted. There was a survey taken, and it was centered around being more inclusive of representation on U.S. currency, and also tying into the 100th anniversary of the 100th anniversary of women having the right to vote. Okay, the 19th Amendment. All right, so we'll discuss that. Then I saw from Washington Post, they had, they do the the fact checking on Donald Trump and the Pinocchios, things like this. Analysis: the longer Trump was president, the more frequently he made false or misleading claims. The longer Trump was president, the more frequently he made false or misleading claims. Trump made 30,573 false or misleading claims as president. Nearly half came in his final year. Now, we've never seen anything like this before. This is just totally unprecedented. Just totally, he has to have some mental issues to lie that much. And you have to remember the lies that you told to keep up with the lies that you told. So you have to keep telling lies. So we've never seen anything like this. And he's going to keep lying when the impeachment trial comes up. He's going to keep lying. Speaking of impeachment trial, we see that the article of impeachment has been transmitted over to the U.S. Senate. The trial is expected to begin the week of February 8th. NBC News is reporting House managers deliver impeachment article against Trump, kicking off trial preparations. House managers deliver impeachment article against Trump, kicking off trial preparations. But we also know each day more and more information is coming out that's damaging to Trump. On Friday and our Sunday show, on our show yesterday, we talked about how the story from Katie Benner for New York Times is dealing with a plot that Trump hatched to replace his acting attorney general with someone else, another attorney in the Department of Justice, Jeffrey Clark. And he was going to, they were going to pressure state lawmakers in Georgia to overturn the election results in Georgia, the presidential election results in Georgia. Okay, so read this article from the New York Times. Washington Post has reporting backing this up, and also NBC News has confirmed this reporting as well. Trump and Department of Justice lawyer said to have plotted to oust acting attorney general. Trump and Department of Justice lawyer said to have plotted to oust acting attorney general. So more and more information is coming out day after day after day, and none of it is good. None of it is good for Trump. None of it is helping his case. None of it is saying, "Oh, it was a big misunderstanding. Oh, we totally misunderstood Trump." No, none of it is good for him. And there's going to be more coming out between now and February 8th, the week of February 8th. No telling how much is going to come out. Now, also, I saw the story. We'll talk about this a little bit because I mean, it's a manic Monday, busy news day. Um, Speaking of Georgia, you know, you would think that because African Americans organized and you had Stacey Abrams and Latasha Brown, things like this in Georgia, right? African Americans organized. We voted our interests. We voted for Reverend Raphael Warnock for senator, John Ossoff for senator, Joe Biden for president. We voted our interests. Whose policies were most beneficial for African Americans? Okay. Whose policies would do us the least amount of harm? Whose policies would protect gains already made? Who will reverse harmful policies from Trump, right? So you would think that Republicans would go back to the drawing board and say, okay, so what policies could we put in place to appeal to African Americans? What policies could we put in place to appeal to, Latinos to, for the 2022 election, for midterm elections, to get them to vote for Republicans? You would think they would go back to the drawing board and say, let's rethink this. Well, no, they're rethinking something, but it's not that. It's not running better candidates. It's not coming with better policies. Politico.com reported today, actually January 24th, state Republicans push new voting restrictions after Trump's loss. State Republicans push new voting restrictions after Trump's loss. Georgia is at the center of the effort, with state Republicans discussing voter ID changes and other new policies after Joe Biden won the state. So instead of them coming with better policies to offer to people, they're coming with better policies to suppress people's votes. Imagine that. You listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation Future Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by, everybody. We're on commercial break. Stand by. We're on mandatory commercial break. How's everybody doing? 313-778-7600. Who we have here? How's everybody doing? I got to get ready for this next segment. Okay, we got Brian, Erica. How you doing, Erica Watson? Mark Watson, Jennifer. Let's see who else. Divine, Alteric, Shurik. Okay, everybody stand by. Listen to the African History Network show. Stand by. I got to get ready for this next segment here. All right. Everybody share this broadcast on your social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in also. And if you like this type of information, you can donate to the African History Network, $ the AHN show through Cash App, $ the AHN show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show. Stand by. How's everybody doing? All right. Let's see. Miami, Garen. Cause of death. Stand by. We'll be back from break in just a second here. Man, it's a busy day. I'm tired. Stand by. We'll be back in just a minute here. All right. Just a minute here. We'll be back from break in 1 minute. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 a.m. the Superstation, the Future Radio. Hey, I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Monday, January 25th, 2020, and we are live. 2021, January 25th, 2021. We are live. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. All right, so it's been a busy day today. You see the articles we posted here on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network. Now, on the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's corrects wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So when you control the radius of a man's thoughts, you can control the circumference of his or her actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. Now, we deal with a number of different topics here on the African History Network show. We deal with current events in history and politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, love, sex, health issues, relationships, and much, much more. Sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T, to 22828. To sign up for our email newsletter, text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T, to 22828. To sign up for our email newsletter. Also visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, to sign up for our email newsletter. All right. Calling number is 313-778-7600. If you have a question or comment, 313-778-7600. If you have a question or comment. And we're going to talk some more about One Night in Miami. We'll deal with that later on in the week also. I'm looking at some additional information. I'm looking at some additional information dealing with that movie as well. I wanted to, let's see, Hank Aaron. We talked about Hank Aaron on Friday and Sunday. I saw an article from people.com that talked about Hank Aaron's cause of death. And this is from January 25th, 2021. Okay. People magazine. Baseball legend Hank Aaron's cause of death revealed. I'm not sure how many people saw this today. And it says that the Fulton County Medical Examiner's Office tells People magazine on Monday, the baseball legend and Hall of Famer, who was 86 years old, by the way. A lot of people don't say that. He was 86 years old. They said he died of natural causes. An investigator with the Fulton County Medical Examiner's Office tells People on Monday, People magazine on Monday, 83 years old, 83 years old. Now, let me see. Now, New York Times said he was 86. I'm looking at the article from the New York Times right now from January 22nd. They said he was 86. The one here from People says 83. And then I think maybe it's a typo, because the original one from People magazine I'm looking at, there's a link to it. It says 86. So I need to let people know. I need to contact People magazine and let them know. But they said that the Fulton County Medical Examiner's Office said it was natural causes. Now, a statement from the Atlanta Braves previously said that Hank Aaron, quote, passed away peacefully in his sleep. Okay. Quote, we are absolutely devastated by the passing of our beloved Hank. He was a beacon for our organization, first as a player, then with player development, and always with our community efforts. Atlanta Braves chairman Terry McGurk wrote in the statement. Now, let's see here. Okay, you can read. You can read the rest of this. I want to get a clarification on age, because everything I've seen, even the early reporting from People magazine, said he was 86. All right, so you can check this out. So once again, rest in peace, Hank Aaron. So check this out from People magazine. All right, let's go to the next topic here. Harriet Tubman on a $20 bill. I talked about this originally back in 2016. And I think I first found out about it in 2015. There was I think I first found out about it in 2015, because what happened was, coinciding with the 100th anniversary of women having the right to vote, okay, which took place in 1920. Coinciding with that, there was a effort to have more representation of women and non-white people on currency. So Women on 20s, an organization called Women on 20s, had this survey for people to vote on who they wanted to replace people on U.S. currency on the $20 bill, like Andrew Jackson, different things like this, right? So there was an article from theroot.com from April 20th, 2016. I had to go back in my archives and pull out these articles, because I knew what happened. I just had to go and find the articles. There was an article from Brianna Edwards from April 26, 2016 for theroot.com. Harriet Tubman to be new face of $20 bill. MLK and Marian Anderson to be honored on back of new $5 bill. Okay, all that was supposed to take place. All right, and that got blocked by Donald Trump and his Treasury Secretary, Steve Mnuchin. Okay. All right, so if we quickly here look at this article, and we'll pull this up here on the screen share, because a lot of people don't really know a lot of the backstory. Okay, so you have some people that say, oh, well, because I remember when I talked about this back in 2016, they said, and people were saying, oh, they're just trying to appease African Americans and things like this. No, it was people were voting for white people. People were voting for African Americans. People were voting for all different people to be on the on U.S. currency. Okay, $20 bill, what have you, whatever it was. So let's go to the screen share. All right, and we'll go to the phone lines in just a second. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. 313-778-7600. So if you know me, I do research. I'm not a reactionary. I don't just jump out and just start talking about stuff, haven't researched it before I start talking about it. So if we look at this article here, Tubman will be replacing Andrew Jackson, President Andrew Jackson, as the $20 bill the Treasury Department confirmed. Okay, this is back in 2016. But Tubman is not the only civil rights icon to be honored on U.S. currency. Secretary of the Treasury, Jacob J. Lew, this was President Obama's Treasury Secretary, Jacob J. Lew, said during a press call Wednesday, back in April 2016, that the $5 bill will also be redesigned and will feature images from the civil rights movement, historic events that occurred on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, including Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech, and a 1939 performance by opera singer Marian Anderson. President Abraham Lincoln will remain the face of the $5 bill. Okay, now all this took place in 2016, 2015, 2016. Okay, once again, Women on 20s, an organization called Women on 20s, they did a survey. People voted who they wanted to replace people on, well, white men. That's basically who all was on the currency they're replacing, who they wanted to be on the currency. Some people said, what was her name? It was a Native American woman. What was her name? Norma, woman, man killer, or something like that. People, people voting for different people. Okay, and these were the top vote getters. Let's go back to the article here. Although Harriet Tubman will replace white supremacist President Andrew Jackson, who instituted who signed off on the Indian Removal Act of 1830 that pushed the Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, Cherokee, and Seminole Indians off their land in southeastern United States and sent them over 1,000 miles out west on the Trail of Tears. And 1/3 of the people who were with those Native Americans were African people. And the U.S. wanted their land in Georgia and Alabama, places like that. Okay, that's not in the article. That's just me saying that. But go research that. The Indian Removal Act of 1830. President Andrew Jackson, Donald Trump's favorite president. So although Harriet Tubman will replace white supremacist President Andrew Jackson on the front of the $20 bill, Jackson's image will still be featured on the back of the bill and will be commingled with, in some way, with the image of the White House. Now, this was back April 2016 that they're saying this. First U.S. Secretary of the Treasury, Alexander Hamilton, who the play Hamilton is named after, will remain the face of the $10 bill, but the back of it, quote, will honor the story and the heroes of the women's suffrage movement against the backdrop of the Treasury building, end quote. Then Secretary of Treasury Jacob Lew said Sojourner Truth, Susan B. Anthony, and Alice Paul are among the women who will be included on the bill. Sojourner Truth, Susan B. Anthony, and Alice Paul are among the women who will be included on the bill. Then Secretary of Treasury Jacob Lew said our currency will now tell more of our story and reflect the contributions of women as well as men to our great democracy, end quote. Okay, now the Treasury Department has scheduled the new designs for the three bills to be released in 2020. That's when it was supposed to happen, in conjunction with the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, which was in 1920, which gave women the right to vote. Circulation of the bills is set to begin at a later date. Then Secretary of Treasury Jacob Lew said that he had asked the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, along with the Federal Reserve, to accelerate the process of producing the new $5, $10, and $20 bills for circulation as quickly as possible, quote, while ensuring that we protect against counterfeiting through effective and sophisticated production, end quote. He then recounted the thought process that went into the final decision to place Harriet Tubman on the front of the $20 bill. Quote, the decision to put Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill was driven by thousands of responses we received from Americans young and old. The decision to put Harriet Tubman, because people voted. Okay, they voted for all different types of people to be on the currency. The decision to put Harriet Tubman on the new $20 bill was driven by thousands of responses we received from Americans young and old. Quote, I have been particularly struck by the many comments and reactions from children for whom Harriet Tubman is not just a historical figure, but a role model for leadership and participation in our democracy. Her incredible story of courage and commitment to equality embodies the ideas and ideas and democracy that our nation celebrates, and we will continue to value her legacy by honoring her on our currency, end quote. So read the rest of this here. She was a spy in the Civil War. Now she had to fight to get a pension, but That's how they treated her. But anyway, so read the rest of this article here. Harriet Tubman to be new face of $20 bill. MLK and Marian Anderson to be honored on back a new $5 bill. This is from April 20th, 2016. All right. So it wasn't just people thinking, oh, they were just coming up with just people to put on the bill. So they just, oh, we're gonna get Harriet Tubman and put her on there. That's not what happened. No. Okay. So the news came today. And they have links in that article. You can read the statements from women on 20s, women on 20s also. I think we may have that pulled up. I'll have to check and see. Let me see. Do we have, yeah, actually here, yeah, we have the website pulled up, women on 20s. Just a second here. Because I saw people commenting on this, but very few people gave the background story. I dealt with this back in 2016 when all this was taking place. So go to womenon20s.org, womenon20s.org. They have the background information there. And then Women on 20s were asked the confirmation of Janet Yellen as new Treasury Secretary. Treasury failed to do their job, and George Floyd paid the price. Let me see. I think speeding up. Okay, and they talk about because Jen Psaki at the White House press secretary briefing today made those comments about Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill. So they have a press release here. You can check that out. Okay, womenon20s.org. So let's look at what happened today. Okay, I'm going to send you this clip here, Shakita. It's what the heck just happened? It's in this article here from NBC News. I'm going to send you this clip. So go ahead and cue that up, and then we'll go to the phone lines while you cue that up. Okay. It's Jen Psaki at the White House press secretary briefing. Let's go to line one. Let's go to Marathon. Marathon, line one. Welcome to the African History Network show. Marathon, thanks for calling back in. You called in yesterday, man. Thanks for calling back in.
Yes, I did. Yes, I wanted to talk more about one night in Miami.
Okay.
I wanted to know, did you think that the death of Sam Cooke had power over his career? He had his own record label and publishing, and he was worth more dead than alive.
Do I think that the death of Sam Cooke has something to do with his record label? Like the Masters
having power over his career, over his own career.
You know, I've seen documentaries on the killing of Sam Cooke. It's like really, it causes a lot of questions to be asked. It very well could be, very well could be something regarding that. The whole way, you know, he was at a hotel and it said that the hotel manager shot him, female hotel manager. So the details around this killing, man, cause a lot of questions to be asked. So I mean, it's possible. I want to go back and watch. There are a couple of documentaries on YouTube that deal with Sam Cooke and his killing, but it's something that's possible because he was one of the few.
Yeah,
he was one of the few African American men back at that time that owned the masters to their music.
Yeah, I had read this book called "You Send Me." I forget the author, but it's been some years ago, and it was a pretty good book.
Okay. Okay. All right, man. All right. Thanks. Thanks, Marathon. Keep listening, man. Okay.
All
right. Thanks for holding. Thanks for calling in. Okay. No problem. All right. 313-778-7600 is the calling number if you have a question or comment. 313-778-7600 is the calling number if you have a question or comment. So let's look at, okay, we had a clip ready. Shakita, let's go to this clip here. This is Jen Psaki from the White House press secretary briefing from the day. Let's go to this clip, NBC News.
The Obama administration initially had wanted to put Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill. The Trump administration dragged their feet on that. I wanted to see if the Biden administration has a sort of view of the timeline on whether or not she should be on the paper currency.
I was here when we announced that, and it was very exciting. It hasn't moved forward yet, which we would have been surprised to learn at the time. The Treasury Department is taking steps to resume efforts to put Harriet Tubman on the front of the new $20 notes. It's important that our notes, our money, people don't know what a note is, reflect the history and diversity of our country, and Harriet Tubman's image gracing the new $20 note would certainly reflect that. So we're exploring ways to speed up that effort, but any specifics would, of course, come from the Department of Treasury.
Okay, now, so that's Jen Psaki, the new White House press secretary. And, you know, I heard some of the press secretary briefing today. Like I said, this is the first time that I've been able to watch a press secretary briefing in 2 years without cussing. Because Sarah Huckabee Sanders, she's a sucker to me. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who announced she's running for governor for Arkansas, that's going to be good. She's an idiot. Oh my God. And then Kayleigh McEnany. These are some of the most talk about the wicked witch of the East and the West. Well, I call them the wicked witches of the White House, right? The wicked witches of the White House, wicked witches of the East Wing and West Wing of the White House. So this right here, I can watch it. My blood pressure's low and I don't cuss and yell at the TV. So, so the Obama administration announced in 2016 that it would be placing Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill, replacing Andrew Jackson. But the Trump administration said in 2019, and let's go. This is from NBC News. Let's see if we can turn on the screen share so you can see this here. You can go read this article also. Let's see. Okay, so the Trump administration said in 2019 that the change would be delayed until at least 2028 because of technical issues. Jen Psaki, White House press secretary, said the White House is, quote, exploring ways to speed up that effort, end quote. Okay. All right. So we'll see what happens there. But why would it take to 2028? That's what I understand. Why would it take to 2028? But you know, hey. All right. Next, there was. Let's see here. We'll talk some more about executive orders tomorrow. There was a good article from NBC News that we posted today that outlines the 30 executive orders that Biden has signed, like in his first 6 days. Now we've been going through breaking them down here. So yeah, here's the full list of Biden's executive actions so far. You can read all of the executive orders at whitehouse.gov. This is something we talked about yesterday. We talked about this on Friday. Well, actually Wednesday through Friday last week, we went through a lot of these executive orders. And then also on our Sunday show, we went through them as well. And the one dealing with the executive order dealing with racial justice is really important because that ties into the study from Citigroup that shows how from the year 2000 to 2016, from 2000 to 2020, racism has cost the U.S. economy $16 trillion. All right. We talked about that yesterday. Okay, so check this out here from NBC News, because a lot of people don't know that there have been this many executive orders or what's in them, etc. Here's the full list of Biden executive orders actions so far. Steps to strengthen the nation's COVID-19 response and restore environmental protections are among Biden's first measures as president. Also getting rid of the 1776 project from Trump. That was important as well, because that 45-page report from the Trump administration that sought to rewrite the history of this country and rewrite the history of slavery. And people are already confused enough. Let's see, that was executive. You know what? I have it up here at whitehouse.gov. That was executive order on advancing racial equity and support for underserved communities through the federal government. Okay, check that one out. That is, you can read all of them at whitehouse.gov, which is the official website of the White House. Okay, let's see here. This one right here. That's a really important one. Very few people are talking about this one, which ties into Biden's inaugural address on January 20th, talking about fighting against white supremacy and racism. This executive order ties right into that. All right. Next, let's go to, I want to go to dinner with One Night, talking about One Night in Miami again. So there was a scene in One Night in Miami is a movie. It's on Amazon Prime, directed by Regina King. Who we first saw in 227, and we've, she's an actress, she's a director now. It's a fictionalized account of a meeting that Malcolm X, Cassius Clay, who became Muhammad Ali, Jim Brown, football player turned actor Jim Brown, and singer Sam Cooke had the night of February 25th, 1964, when Muhammad Ali wins his championship from Sonny Liston. He beat Sonny Liston. They go to Malcolm X's hotel room at the Hampton Hotel, room number 245 at the Hampton Hotel, which was a segregated hotel. Okay, and there's a scene where Cassius Clay and Sam Cooke are in a car, and they're talking about what African Americans want at that time. This is 1964. This is before the Civil Rights Act of 64 is signed. It's not till July. This is before the Voting Rights Act is signed. It's not till August. This is before affirmative action, which was August 1965, the Voting Rights Act. This is before affirmative action, which was September 1965. This is before all of that. And Sam Cooke is saying, we want power. We want Black power. Okay. So then this ties into the Black Power slogan really being presented to the world June 26, 1966, during the March Against Fear. The March Against Fear. Okay. And this is in Mississippi. And you had James Meredith, who led this March Against Fear. It was from Memphis, Tennessee to Jackson, Mississippi, to encourage African Americans to register to vote and to vote after the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Okay, so James Meredith, who integrated the University of Mississippi, James Meredith was shot, and along the march, it started out as a march, him doing it himself. He was shot and couldn't continue to march. So you're going to have activists from SNCC and CORE, Congress of Racial Equality, and Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and the Delta Ministry, and more. They're going to come to They're going to come to finish the march. So you're going to have them. They're going to get arrested, and you have Dr. King, you have Kwame Ture, Stokely Carmichael, and when Kwame Ture comes out of jail, he gives this speech and he talks about, we want power, we want Black power. All right. I want to go to this clip here. This is from African Americans, Many Rivers to Cross, Henry Louis Gates Jr. on PBS that talks about this. Let's go to this clip, Shakita.
To my eyes. A few months later, President Johnson would sign our nation's first Voting Rights Act.
Just 10 years following the Montgomery bus boycott, a revolution had occurred. The passage of the Voting Rights Act was the high watermark of a decade of struggle for civil rights. But despite the legislative victory, Southern states still made it difficult, if not impossible, for Black citizens to register and vote. In June 1966, James Meredith, a law student, staged a solo march across the South to draw attention to the issue of voter registration. It would be called the March Against Fear. Barely 2 days into his march, Meredith crossed the Mississippi state line and was shot and wounded by a sniper. In the days following the shooting, the movement's elders, led by Dr. King, came to finish what James Meredith had started. But this time, they were joined by SNCC and its youthful leader, Stokely Carmichael. You have two generations, the generation that Martin Luther King Jr. represents and the generation that Stokely Carmichael represents. And Dr. King's message was really wearing thin in this latter half of the 1960s, particularly because there's so much violence.
As the violence grew, the willingness to be passive declined.
Do you think you'll be able to keep it nonviolent, Dr. King?
Yes, I think so. I don't have any doubt in my mind about that.
Mr. Carmichael, are you as committed to the nonviolent approach as Dr. King is?
No, I'm not.
Why aren't you?
Well, I just don't see it as a way of life. I never have.
The Meredith March is where Stokely Carmichael becomes an icon.
No one in this country is asking the white community in the South to be nonviolent. And that, in a sense, is giving them a free license to go ahead and shoot us at will.
Carmichael and the militant activists, they're thinking that civil rights has not gone far enough. They want liberation and freedom now.
What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? How much do you want?
We're here in the heart of the Black community.
Okay. We're out of time here. We're going to continue this on our social media platforms. So if you're watching us on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, or our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, keep watching. We'll continue this. We're out of time here on 910 AM Superstation. Right now, it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you tomorrow night. Stay tuned for Pastor Greg Davis. Peace. All right. Stand by, everybody. Stand by. Okay. Let's continue here. All right, how's everybody doing? Okay, let's let me cue that clip back up because we're only on 9:10 a.m. WFDF here in Detroit for an hour, and then we continue on my social media platforms. Because this show is only really supposed to be an hour, but I can keep going on my social media platforms as needed. All right, hey, if you like this type of information, you can donate to the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App. Also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show, paypal.me/the AHN Show. Then also at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. African American business owners, post the name of your business here on the thread of the broadcast. Email us at customerservice@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We'll let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network, okay? Let's see here. And our current promotion is buy 1 month, get 1 month free, and you'll actually get 200 commercials in 30 days. 200 commercials in 30 days. Email us at customerservice@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. All right, so hopefully the information now, dealing with Harriet Tubman, we'll go back to the March Against Fear and Kwame Ture in just a minute here. I read the article I read the reporting dealing with Harriet Tubman on $20 bill. And I gave you that background information because most people are not going to do that. You're going to see people putting out videos talking about, you know, oh, Joe Biden wants Harriet Tubman on a $20 bill. That was supposed to happen already. That was all supposed to happen because people voted to have different people on the $20 bill. So you're going to have people putting out nonsense and they haven't done the research. I reported on this back in 2016, back in April 2016. And then previously when the actual voting was taking place, which started, if I remember correctly, started in late 2015. I was dealing with this back then, just so people understand, okay? All right. Let's see here. Okay, so read those articles. Go check that stuff out. Okay, let's go back to this clip here. Let me pull this up, cue this up here. This is from African Americans, Many Rivers to Cross. There's also a book that accompanies this as well. That was a 6-part series on PBS in 2012. I'm not a big fan of Gates, but he does do good research. I read some of his books. Okay, let's go back to this clip here.
Declined. Do you think you'll be able to keep it nonviolent, Dr. King?
Yes, I think so. I don't have any doubt in my mind about that.
Mr. Carmichael, are you as committed to the nonviolent approach as Dr. King is?
No, I'm not.
Why aren't you?
Well, I just don't see it as a way of life. I never have.
The Meredith March is where Stokely Carmichael becomes an icon.
No one in this country is asking the white community in the South to be nonviolent. And that, in a sense, is giving them a free license to go ahead and shoot us at will.
Carmichael and the militant activists, they're thinking that civil rights has not gone far enough. They want liberation and freedom now.
What do you want? What do you want? When do you want it? How much of it do you want?
We're here in the heart of the Black community in Greenwood, the deep heart of Mississippi. The tensions within the march are starting to manifest themselves. Twilight was coming. This park is filled with the Meredith marchers. Stokely Carmichael gets up to give a speech.
We beg the federal government. That's all we've been doing, begging. It's time we stand up and take over.
He talks about Black aspirations. He talks about how Black is beautiful. And he talks about how Black people need to control their own communities.
Every courthouse in Mississippi ought to be burned down tomorrow.
So that when he drops the slogan, if you will, when he starts to say,
What do you want?
what do we want? Black power.
We want black power. We want black power.
And starts, urging on the crowd. And next thing you know, he's got this massive response.
What do you want?
Hey, that's a turning point in African American history, and certainly a turning point in the civil rights movement.
I saw it that night on TV with my mother and my father. Yeah.
What did it feel like?
Oh, it was electric, man. I got goose flesh. Mm-hmm. You knew that it was like the top of your head was about to come on.
Activists had expressed a lot of these ideas already. But Black power.
Not in my living room. I never heard it before. I went like, wow, it's like a nuclear bomb going on.
The whole nation is talking about Black power.
All right, so that's from African Americans, Many Rivers to Cross. That's from episode 5. Deals with 1940 to 1968. It deals with 1940 to 1968. So this launched the next portion of the civil rights movement, which is going to be the Black Power movement, which dealt with a Black consciousness and real Black empowerment. Okay, and using the term Black as a powerful, positive term and not a negative term. You Black so and so, you so Black, what have you, right? And so this is, once again, this is before the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense is founded. We're talking about June 26, 1966. That's not until October 1966. All right. And it's and we see the Black Power movement coming out of SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC. All right. So a couple good articles you can check out. And this ties into One Night in Miami. The difference is so much different references to history in One Night in Miami. So we're going to deal with that some in some different days this week. And then also I have to watch the new documentary MLK FBI, because we'll talk about that as well. All right. So James Meredith recovered from his wound and rejoined the march before it reached Jackson, Mississippi. It is estimated that 3,000 African-American Mississippians were registered to vote during the march. Now, at sncdigital.org, at their page, they have an entry for the March Against Fear. It is noted SNCC participants sought opportunities to convey the idea that beyond getting more Black people registered to vote, a more radical approach to change was now necessary. A more beyond just getting African Americans registered to vote, because there was rampant voter suppression taking place at this time. It was not contrary to popular belief, it was not illegal for African Americans to vote in the South. They put obstacles in the way of you voting. So you may have to pass a literacy test, or if you registered to vote, you could be fired from your job. That's what happened to Fannie Lou Hamer. Fannie Lou Hamer grew up in Mississippi. She was the youngest of 20 children. Her family was sharecroppers that worked on a plantation. Okay. When she registered to vote, she got fired from the plantation that her family worked on. BlackPast.org has an article dealing with Fannie Lou Hamer, okay, that people can check out that talk about her history. So, you're battling against things like the White Citizens Council. And the White Citizens Council was founded in 1954 as a direct backlash to the Brown versus Board of Education U.S. Supreme Court desegregation case. Okay, Brown versus Board of Education. The White Citizens Council, that's going to be made up of white bankers. Now, they were actually called the Citizens Council, but people ostensibly called them the White Citizens Council because those were the only people on the Citizens Council, right? So this was made up of bankers and Fannie Lou Hamer. This was made up of bankers, landowners, plantation owners, politicians, and they were similar to the Klan, but they didn't wear hoods. Okay, they were similar to the Klan, but they didn't wear hoods. So if you say you owned a farm and you African American, and you registered to vote in Mississippi, they may call in the loan on your farm as retaliation for you. I ain't say you voted. I said you registered to vote. Okay, Fannie Lou Hamer got fired from her job on the plantation, not because she voted, but because she registered to vote. Okay, so BlackPast.org has an article dealing with Fannie Lou Hamer, and okay, you go through, check it out for the sake of time. I don't want to get tied up with this. I don't want to get deep into this. But yeah, check this out. And also with Fannie Lou Hamer, she was sterilized. She was part of that Mississippi sterilization program. 1961, she was sterilized without her knowledge or consent by a white doctor as part of the state of Mississippi's plan to reduce the number of impoverished African Americans in the state. We also know that Fannie Lou Hamer, she gets involved in the civil rights movement. On August 23rd, 1962, after hearing a sermon by Reverend James Bevel, Fannie Lou Hamer volunteered to become an organizer for the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC. All right. Fannie Lou Hamer was a bad sister. She also owned guns too. This is something that's not really talked about her. Because I think a lot of people that talk about Fannie Lou Hamer and talk about I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, they probably don't want you to know that she owned guns. But she was from the South. All these people from the South, most of them own guns. If not, at least they had a straight razor or something like that. But most of them own guns, including Dr. King, till Bayard Rustin convinced him to get rid of his guns, which I think was a mistake. But Dr. King did it for the movement. On August 23rd, 1962, after hearing a sermon of Reverend James Bevel, she volunteered to become an organizer for Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee to help Black Mississippians register to vote. While she was traveling by bus on June 3rd, 1963, state law enforcement officers in Winona, Mississippi, took Fannie Lou Hamer and fellow activists to Montgomery County Jail, where they were beaten mercilessly. She testified that she was beaten until her body was hard, quote unquote, body was hard, okay, mercilessly, until her body was hard. She suffered a blood clot, sustained damage to her kidney, and required a month to recover from the assault. Fannie Lou Hamer was not intimidated, and after her recovery, returned to the effort to register and organize African American voters. All right, read the rest of this dealing with Fannie Lou Hamer at blackpast.org. Blackpast.org is Fannie Lou Hamer. Another picture of her. They have an article here, Fannie Lou Hamer, 1917 and 1977. Okay, blackpast.org. All right, now let's see here. Let's go back. Okay, and then also here's a, this is from 1966 during the March Against Fear. Fannie Lou Hamer was there also. She participated in that. Here's a picture of her at the March Against Fear. Okay, let's see here. And that is from, yeah, that's in June 1966. Okay, so SNCC participants sought opportunities to convey the idea that beyond getting more Black people registered to vote, a more radical approach to change was now necessary. It was within this context that SNCC's Willie Ricks, who's now Mukasa Dada, I interviewed Mukasa Dada some years ago, okay? Willie Ricks, Mukasa Dada, and Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture shouted Black Power, a shortened version of Black Power for Black people. SNCC organizers had been using the phrase in Alabama. So as I talked about on Sunday show, I think it was Sunday show, as I talked about on Sunday show, in SNCC, they were already using the term Black Power. And when you watch the second series of Eyes on the Prize, which dealt with from 65 into the 1980s, okay, they interview Kwame Ture, and he talks about how they were priming people with the term Black Power and with this ideology within SNCC, okay? And Kwame Ture in 1966, he's going to win the chairmanship from John Lewis. John Lewis, I love John Lewis, but John Lewis, he wasn't with Black Power, okay? Now, John Lewis did tell him when they started using the term about Black Power, he did tell him, you need to get some programs behind, it can't just be a slogan, you need to get some programs. But John Lewis, when he leaves the chairmanship, when he loses the chairmanship, he's going to leave SNCC. He was a, for lack of a better term, well, he followed Dr. King, but sometimes I think he followed. I think he was more adherent to Dr. King's ideologies than even Dr. King, because Dr. King, his ideologies evolved toward the end of Dr. King and Malcolm X's life. Dr. King's ideologies and Malcolm X's ideologies are converging. That's what, and you see this when you read Martin Malcolm in America, A Dream or a Nightmare. When you read Martin Malcolm in America, A Dream or a Nightmare by James H. Cone. All right. So John Lewis was really committed to the idea of the beloved community, and he was really against Black power and, all that. So it is what it is. This is why I said when they had the funeral for John Lewis, and I love John Lewis. I love John Lewis and accept his faults. Okay, I don't beat him. See, I don't beat him up for his faults, because I understand his upbringing and being the son of sharecroppers and things like this. So I don't beat him up for his faults. But when he passed away, and they had the funeral for John Lewis, the memorial service, and Bill Clinton spoke. And Bill Clinton talked about how he felt that being Bill Clinton, felt that the civil rights movement went in a different direction, went in the wrong direction for a few years, went in the direction of Kwame Ture, Stokely Carmichael. Okay. And a lot of people were going crazy when he said that, things like that. And we talked about it here on the show. And I dealt with, I brought on Dr. Hassan Kwame Jeffries, associate professor of history at Ohio State University. We talked about it because he teaches about the civil rights movement. He's a nephew of Dr. Leonard Jeffries, one of my teachers. I also interviewed Professor Manu Pim from Contra Costa College, who is teaches, he's a history professor. And what a lot of people don't realize is what Bill Clinton said is actually how John Lewis felt. John Lewis felt that the civil rights movement went in the wrong direction, and it went towards Kwame Ture, and he was against that. So, I heard people attacking what Bill Clinton said, but they ain't say, well, that's how John Lewis actually felt when you study John Lewis. And if you go and watch the second series of Eyes on the Prize, and they have some clips of it on YouTube. I was checking because I had some clips bookmarked and they took those down. I'm trying to get the box set on DVD. I have the box set of the first Eyes on the Prize series on DVD. It's a 3 DVD set. I'm trying to get the second one. I ordered it from Amazon. But when you watch the second Eyes on the Prize series from about 65 into the 1980s, they interview John Lewis. They talk about him losing the chairmanship to SNCC, right? And he talks about how he thought SNCC went in the wrong direction and he was against the Black Power movement. They were pushing the white people out of SNCC, all that stuff. Okay. So you have to go check that out. All right, now let's go back to this here. So we had a clip, we had an article here from the Zen Education Project. Yeah. Okay. So this dealt with the March Against Fear, Zen Education Project. They have some really good information you can use in classrooms, you can use for homeschooling if you want to. The website is zinnedproject.org, zeneducationproject.org. Okay, so check out this article here. This is dealing with June 6, 1966, and the March Against Fear. James Meredith and the March Against Fear. James Meredith and the March Against Fear. Okay, now there was another article dealing with this. And see, One Night in Miami, there's so much history that's referenced in the movie. Okay, we're going to try to highlight some of those things this week on our shows this week. There was another one from, okay, this is from snicdigital.org. They referenced it in the other article. This is it right here, snicdigital.org, June 1966, Meredith March. Okay, so you can check out this full article. There's a link in the other article to this one here. On Sunday, June 5th, 1966, James Meredith had just stepped off U.S. Highway 51 to begin a 220-mile trek through Mississippi. His purpose, he told a handful of reporters there, was, quote, to challenge the all-pervasive, overriding fear, quote, still dominant among many Black Mississippians when they attempted to register to vote. So this was challenging their fears when it came to registering to vote that African Americans had. And it was good reason for those fears. I mean, you down in Mississippi. Mississippi had more lynchings from like 1882 to 1968 than any other state. I mean, there was good reason for the fear, but he was talking about confronting your fear. So his purpose, he told the handful of reporters there, was, quote, to challenge the all-pervasive, overriding fear, quote, still dominant among many Black Mississippians when they attempted to register to vote. James Meredith, more than many, knew about the fear and danger. In 1962, James Meredith had become the first African-American person to enroll in the University of Mississippi. Mob violence and murder greeted his enrollment. Okay. So he's going to be shot. Several pellets struck James Meredith in the head, neck, and body while horrified onlookers watched. He was shot by a sniper. Once again, James Meredith was met with violence just south of Hernando. On the second day of his solitary march, a white man by the name of Aubrey James Norville stood along the roadside and raised his shotgun, then fired 3 loads of buckshot at James Meredith. Several pellets struck James Meredith in the head, neck, and body while horrified onlookers watched. Almost immediately, civil rights leaders from different organizations rushed to James Meredith's bedside at a Memphis hospital with plans to continue the march against fear while he recuperated. Martin Luther King Jr. and CORE's National Director Floyd McKissick met with SNCC's Cleveland Sellers, Stanley Wise, and newly elected SNCC Chairman Stokely Carmichael, who stressed that the march was an opportunity, quote, to organize the communities along the march route, end quote. SNCC wanted to march to focus attention on local voter registration efforts by bringing marchers and reporters to Mississippi, towns where most Black people were still unregistered as voters. They also insisted that marchers use civil disobedience in communities where they encountered resistance. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. was the march's most visible figure. Black people in Mississippi and throughout the South idolized Dr. King and trusted his leadership. King, for his part, was aware of a new anger among young Black people in SNCC and elsewhere, and one could detect in his speeches during the march attempts to reflect the new radical mood without abandoning the ideas of nonviolence and brotherhood. Okay. All right. So check out the rest of this article here from this is another good resource, Digital SNCC Gateway, snicdigital.org, snicdigital.org. And this is June 1966, Meredith March, dealing with the march against fear. Okay. So we'll post this link here. Also, you all can register for the online course that I teach. It's starting up February 3rd, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. This is an 8-week, 16-hour online course. It's broken up into 8 sessions. Okay, it's about 16 hours. I do a PowerPoint presentation. We have video clips, book references, articles, everything. We deal with thousands of years of history and what led to the transatlantic slave trade happening. So it's on sale $80, regularly $130. As soon as you register, you can start watching bonus content. And then if you have any questions, email me at ahnshow@africanhistorynetwork.com. ahnshow@africanhistorynetwork.com about the online class. Okay. But you can watch from around the world. And then we do the show live Wednesdays, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Watch from around the world. And then all the sessions are archived, so you can go back and watch them over and over again as well. All right. But we deal with thousands of years of history, and we deal with what leads to the transatlantic slave trade happening. Okay. So when we talk about the transatlantic slave trade, we can't start talking about it in 1619. We know August 20th, 1619 was the 400th year anniversary when 28 Africans came into Point Comfort, okay, in Virginia, but that's not when African people first came to this land. We know many African Americans were reconnecting with their African heritage and ancestry during the year of return in 2019 and going to Ghana and other West African countries. Now, when we discuss the transatlantic slave trade, we have to first understand that African people are the original people of North, Central, and South America, okay? The original people of North, Central, and South America, and that we have been in this land that we call the United States of America going back at least 51,700 years ago. Now, this is what Dr. David Imhotep talks about in the book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. I've interviewed him, I think, 13, 14 times now. The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. His book is backed up by 713 footnotes. And this is what I use this book in the course also. His book is backed up by 713 footnotes, and which thoroughly documents the African presence in North, Central, and South America. South America going back at least 56,000 years ago at the time the book came out in like 2011. And in the land we call the United States of America going back at least 51,700 years ago. Now, we can't start studying our history in slavery. Even when we study the transatlantic slave trade, we can't even start in the 1440s when the Portuguese get involved in 1441 going into Mauritania. We have to understand the history chronologically and deal with the 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors, who entered into the Iberian Peninsula, today known as Spain and Portugal, from North Africa in 711 AD. So this course not only deals with the transatlantic slave trade, but thousands of years of history that leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. So we deal with ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt. We deal with what the Moors take in from the Nile Valley region of Africa into Europe, and these teachings bring Europe out of the Dark Ages, and they're going to lead to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. Okay, so we deal with things chronologically. All right, so check that out. And we posted a link here, and also you can sign up at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Okay, let's continue here. Let me see where I left off. Okay, so little Rudy is back in the news. Not Rudy Huxtable, Rudy Giuliani. Dominion Voting Systems has filed a $1.3 billion lawsuit against Lil Rudy with the Jerry curl juice dripping down the side of his head. You all saw that picture. It looked like he was auditioning to be an extra in Coming to America Part 2. Let's go to this article here from Axios.com. We posted this today. People had a good laugh with this one. I saw this. I knew this was coming because Sidney Powell got hit with a $1.3 billion lawsuit. That idiotic attorney Sidney Powell, who was telling all these lies and all these idiotic conspiracy theories. So I knew this was coming. Dominion files $1.3 billion defamation lawsuit against Rudy Giuliani. Now, Dominion Voting Systems filed a defamation lawsuit against Rudy on Monday, January 25th, seeking a seeking 1.3 billion in damages for his demonstrably false allegations. Demonstrably false allegations about the company's voting machines. Now, Giuliani led former President Donald Trump's efforts to overturn the results of the election and spread the baseless conspiracy theory that the Dominion voting machines flipped votes from Donald Trump to Joe Biden. Another one of Trump's allies, Sidney Powell, is also facing a defamation lawsuit for falsely claiming that Dominion was part of an international communist plot, communist plot to rig the election. Why can't y'all just admit Trump lost? Why can't you just admit people outworked? They had Biden had better policies, had a better platform. People outworked the Trump campaign. Why can't you just admit that you all lost? I don't understand why you got to make up all these lies. And then focus on trying to disenfranchise African American voters, overturn, try to disenfranchise our votes, things like this. I don't understand this. And you think that you're going to attract African Americans to the Republican Party doing this stuff here? You think? I mean, yeah, you're gonna have Candace Owens, dumbass, and and James C. Harris, and all these little idiots. You're gonna have them, but you're not gonna grow the party. You're not gonna grow the party with African Americans acting like this. Now, the lawsuit against Rudy Giuliani is based on more than 50 statements he made at hearings, on Twitter, on his podcast, and in media appearances, including after Dominion voting systems sent him a legal notice, calling on him to stop. They said, look here, player, pull up. They said, look here, man, you need to stop that. He kept going with the bit. He kept going. He couldn't stop. It's like Lay's potato chips. You can't have just one. He kept going. Giuliani did not immediately respond to a request for comment. I'm pretty sure he didn't. Now, during a court hearing contesting the results of the 2020 election in Pennsylvania, Rudy Giuliani admitted that the Trump campaign doesn't plead fraud and that this is not a fraud case. Now, Dominion wrote this in their 107-page lawsuit. Their lawsuit is 107 pages. See, this is what I was explaining to people. When you go research these lawsuits that they were filing, like about 60 of them in different states, don't pay attention to what they were saying at press conferences, like at the Four Seasons lawn care service, next to the sex shop. Don't listen to what they were saying on Fox News or Newsmax. Don't pay attention to what they were saying on Twitter. Go look at the actual court filing. Because when they're actually filing the case in court, they weren't alleging fraud. They weren't saying this was fraud. They weren't saying these were fraudulent votes. That's not what they were alleging in court. That's what they said to the losers and suckers so they could raise over $250 million. That's what they were saying in emails that they're sending out to the losers and suckers to get them to donate money. Some of those losers and suckers were there January 6th at the insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. So this is the con that they're running. This is the hustle they're running. You can't, game recognizes game. You can't slick a can of oil. All right. I know the hustle that they're running. You're saying one thing in the media, but when you go to court, you're saying something else, because you can't go to court and lie. The attorneys, they can't go to court and lie to the judge because they can be sanctioned. They can end up losing their law license. So they can't go to the court. They can go to court and allege fraud and have no evidence to back that up. This is why they weren't doing that in the court cases. But a lot of those people that follow Trump and half of them can't read. So it's obvious they haven't read the U.S. Constitution. We talked about that yesterday and Friday. So just to give you an example of what I'm talking about. You had this guy. He wants his there was an article from Guardian.com. We've talked about that here before. businessman Frederick Eshelman. Okay, businessman Frederick Eshelman. Now, he woke up and smelled what the Rock was cooking. He donated $2.5 million to one of these pro-Trump election ethics groups who were filing lawsuits, these frivolous lawsuits, trying to overturn the results of the elections, right? Now, I don't think he was there storming the Capitol. I think he has more sense than that. But what happened was he realized that he was being conned. Look at this article here. Everybody, I want everybody to go read this. Game recognizes game, okay? I know the hustle you're running. Trump supporter who gave $2.5 million to fight election fraud wants money back. Why would you want your money back? Because you found out they were lying. Businessman Frederick Eshelman, those who watch the show, you know we've talked about this before. Businessman Frederick Eshelman sues pro-Trump election ethics group, citing, quote, disappointing results, end quote, of effort to expose cheating. Well, you should have been looking at Trump. Trump was the one that told people to vote twice in North Carolina. Trump was the candidate that told people to vote twice. Trump is the one who's trying to overturn election results and pressure Brad Raffensperger and Secretary of State in Georgia. You talk about somebody cheating, you're looking at the wrong people. A Donald Trump supporter who donated $2.5 million to help expose and prosecute claims of fraud in the presidential election wants his money back after what he says are, quote, disappointing results. Frederick Eshelman, a dumbass businessman from North Carolina, said he gave the money to True the Vote. True the Vote, a pro-Trump election ethics group in Texas that promised to file lawsuits in 7 swing states as part of its push to, quote, investigate, litigate, and expose suspected illegal balloting and fraud in the 2020 general election, end quote. But according to a lawsuit businessman Frederick Eshelman filed this week, now this article came out November 28th, 2020. But according to a lawsuit businessman Frederick Eshelman filed this week in Houston, first reported by Bloomberg News, True the Vote, the elections ethics group, or lack of ethics, True the Vote, dropped its legal actions. Let me highlight this. I want y'all to see this here. See, this is the con they're running. True the Vote dropped its legal actions and discontinued its Validate the Vote 2020 campaign, then refused to return his calls when he demanded an explanation, because you're being conned. The jig is up. They're running off with your money. They're not gonna, they can't explain to you that they were lying. The founder of Eshelman Ventures, LLC, a venture capital company, said he asked, quote, regularly and repeatedly for updates. Regularly and repeatedly for updates, the lawsuit asserts, but that his requests were consistently met with vague responses, platitudes, and empty promises. It's like, how could you? I'm trying to figure out how he got $2 million as dumb as he is. That's what I'm trying to figure out. You know, this sounds like white privilege to me, but you know. The lack of success of True the Vote's efforts to challenge the outcome appears to mirror that of Donald Trump himself, whose team has lost, at the time on November 28, had lost 38 court actions. Now it's about 60 since the November election. Most recently in Pennsylvania, where a federal appeals court panel blasted Trump's legal team for filing a case with no merit, because they're lying. They're lying. This is why. So read the rest of this article here. Okay, read the rest. This is just an example. Now he woke up and smelled what the rock is cooking and realized he's being conned. Now some of these other people realized they're being conned when the FBI showed up at that door, knocking on that door. Look here, player. Is this your ass right here? You up in the U.S. Capitol building? Is this you up here breaking stuff that looks like you? That's your video. We trace this to you. Here's a subpoena for you. Here's a warrant for your arrest. You got other people realizing they're up there begging Trump for a pardon. He ain't give them one. So you got other people realizing, hold on, wait a second. Hold on, when they supposed to arrest Joe Biden? He said, what you talking about, President Joe Biden? All these QAnon supporters, they're realizing that the jig is up. All right. So let's see here. So check out that article from The Guardian. Then, okay, and look at the one from Axios.com as well. Dominion files $1.3 billion defamation lawsuit against Rudy Giuliani. That's going to be funny. That's going to be funny right there. And let's see here. Oh, so now speaking, we're talking about Georgia, right? Like I said at the beginning of the show, you would think that Republicans would come back with better policies to appeal to African Americans and Latinos and things like this to win our vote. You would think they would try to win our vote. No, they want to come in Georgia. They want to come with more voter restriction laws to keep us from voting. Imagine that. So Politico reports on this. State Republicans push new voting restrictions after Trump's loss. Georgia is at the center of the effort with state Republicans discussing voter ID changes and other new policies after Biden won the state. Now, I'm telling you right now, it ain't just Joe Biden. It's not just Joe Biden winning the presidency. It's not just that. It's Reverend Raphael Warnock. The African-American man is Reverend Raphael Warnock winning as U.S. Senator. Because if you understand the history of Georgia and you understand the reason why they have a runoff election in Georgia, that goes back to 1963, and that goes back to a segregationist state representative named Denmark Groover. And that law was put in place specifically to keep African Americans from having statewide power, becoming governor, U.S. senator, attorney general, things like this. All right. There was an article from 11 Alive, and we've talked about this, of course, here. 11alive.com in Georgia. Runoffs arose to limit power of Black voters in Georgia, much of South. See, this is why you have to understand history. History tells you what happened, why it happened, and how you got to this point right now, and to understand what has to take place in the trajectory of the future, the course that you need to take to get where you want to be. But you have to understand the laws and policies and what happened, what took place to put you in that predicament. Okay. And a people's history and culture teaches them how to deal with the problems of the past in the present and the future and meet the needs of the community. This is why history is so important. So if we look at this article here from 11 Alive, runoffs arose to limit power of Black voters in Georgia, much of South, experts say. Now, this is from November 9th, 2020. And they, okay, so they talk about Denmark Groover. At the Georgia state capitol in the 1960s, State Representative Denmark Groover led a charge for runoff elections. A federal report looking at civil rights in America called Representative Denmark Groover a staunch segregationist who pushed for runoffs in Georgia as a way to challenge a growing Black political power. Okay, as a way to challenge a growing Black political power. The report reads, quote, support for the majority vote plan reinforced the moderate segregationist position. It did not remove anyone's right to cast a ballot, but it was commonly regarded as hampering African Americans, the stigmatized Black voters. Commonly regarded as hampering African Americans, the stigmatized Black voters. This law, put in place in 1963, was specifically targeting African Americans to lock us out of statewide political power in Georgia, a former Confederate state. In Georgia, a former Confederate state. So Reverend Raphael Warnock, winning with the help of Stacey Abrams and Latasha Brown and all the activists, things like that, they defied white supremacy. And it's got a lot of white Republicans in Georgia running scared, because that was not supposed to happen. Also, that's on top of Joe Biden winning. That wasn't supposed to happen either in Georgia. According to them, that wasn't supposed to happen. So now what they're doing is now they're coming back with more laws to suppress the African American vote. Okay? They're coming with more laws to suppress the African American vote. All right, how's everybody doing? We're going to continue with this. If you like this type of information, also you could donate to the African History Network. $ the AHN show through Cash App. $ the AHN show through Cash App. Then also on through PayPal, paypal.me / the AHN show. PayPal.me / the AHN show. Okay. And then also at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Okay, we have, okay, that's Carl, Eric, Robert, who else we have? Simone. How you doing, Simone? Just a few of the people watching. Share this broadcast on your social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in also. We'll be here for a few more minutes because I got to get the hell out of here. All right. So let's go back to this very quickly here. I just want to give you this background information, this background historical information. So it did not remove anyone's right to cast a ballot, but it was commonly regarded as hampering African Americans, the stigmatized Black voters, while still allowing Black voters to cast a ballot. Runoff elections at the time attempted to make sure candidates representing the white majority, not the interests of Black citizens, would be elected. The South traditionally was a one-party government, one-party Democrat, beginning in the 19th century, the 1800s, up until the middle of the 20th century, the middle of the 1900s, and more recently, one-party Republican. As voting laws and patterns have shifted, the impact of runoffs may have also changed. Quote, they don't function precisely that way anymore, but one has to wonder what function they do have, said Cal Gilson, a political science professor at Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas. Okay. Now I want to go quickly here to this clip from 11 Alive that gives us background information. So because I want to connect this story from Politico.com today, okay, or from January 24th, 2021. I want to connect that story to history going back to 1963 and understanding the Confederacy and locking African Americans out of political power in Georgia. Okay, let's Just a second. It's come up here in just a minute. All right, stand by.
Georgia has shifted to the center of the political universe with
this
election. Georgia has shifted to the center of the political universe with 2 Senate races.
The process of runoff elections may seem fairly simple, but these contests once served a racially motivated purpose. 11 Alive's Joe Hankey with more for us tonight.
Well, many Georgia voters may be familiar with runoff elections. They may not be familiar with the history of runoffs in Georgia and across the South. At the Georgia state capitol in the 1960s, a state representative named Denmark Groover led a charge for runoff elections. A federal report looking at civil rights in America calls Groover a staunch segregationist who pushed for runoffs in Georgia as a way to challenge growing black political power. And, quote, support for the majority vote plan reinforced the moderate segregationist position. It did not remove anyone's right to cast a ballot, but it was commonly regarded as hampering African Americans, the stigmatized bloc voters. While still allowing black voters to cast a ballot, runoffs at the time made sure candidates representing the white majority, not the interests of black citizens, would be elected.
They don't function precisely that way anymore, but one has to wonder what function they do have.
Cal Jilson is a political science professor at Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas. He says runoffs are linked to elections in the South, requiring a candidate to have more than 50% or a majority of votes cast to win an election.
Runoff is an opportunity for the white majority to come together and beat back a challenge from a black candidate.
Frequently, as you know. And when lawmakers such as Groover wrote and passed laws requiring runoffs, they did not hide their intentions.
Before anyone was politically correct, people spoke very directly about their sense of race and the importance of maintaining white supremacy. And that's what these electoral rules were intended to do.
Currently, Georgia is only one of 10 states, primarily in the South, using runoffs in primaries. Only Georgia and Louisiana use them for general elections. Jilson views runoffs as outdated election law.
There's less and less reason, and really fewer and fewer states as time goes by that use runoffs.
Okay, so that's from 11alive.com in Georgia. That article, runoffs arose to limit power of black voters in Georgia, much of South experts say. All right, we'll post this link here. Okay, so then if we look at the reporting from Politico.com from January 24th, 2021, state Republicans push for voter restrictions. Let me pull this up here. State Republicans push new voting restrictions after Trump's loss. Okay. So I have to ask, well, what's behind this? You know, let's see here. Where are we? Okay. Georgia is at the center of the effort, with state Republicans discussing voter ID changes and other new policies after Biden won the state. Republican legislators across the country are preparing a slew of new voting restrictions, in the wake of former President Donald Trump's defeat. Georgia will be the focal point of the GOP push to change state election laws after Democrats narrowly took both Senate seats in Georgia, and President Joe Biden carried the state by an even smaller margin, a little less than 12,000 votes. But state Republicans in deep red states and battlegrounds alike are citing Trump's meritless claims of voter fraud in 2020 and the declining trust in election integrity Trump helped drive as an excuse to tighten access to the polls. Okay, so you're going to cite lies that Trump told as a reason to tighten access to the polls? It's based upon falsehoods. Okay, So you have, well, so why wouldn't you want more people voting? This is why I understand. Why, see, instead of the Republican Party coming with better policies that address issues pertaining to African Americans, Hispanics, things like that, instead of them coming with better policies, they want to restrict access to the polls, and restricting access to the polls is largely targeting African Americans, Hispanics, non-white people, to drive down our votes, to drive down our turnout. Some Republican officials have been blunt about their motivations. They don't believe they can win unless the rules change. Really? Maybe you should stop. Maybe you should just hang it up. Maybe this ain't for you. They don't believe they can win unless the rules change. They don't have to change all of them, but they've got to change the major parts of them so that we at least have a shot at winning. Alice Olenek, a Republican on the Gwinnett County, Georgia Board of Elections in suburban Atlanta, told the Gwinnett Daily Post last week. She said she has since resisted calls to resign. Now, the chair of the Texas Republican Party has called on the state legislature there to make election integrity the top legislative priority in 2021, calling, among other things, for a reduction in the number of days of early voting. So why are you trying to reduce access to the polls? This is supposed to be the land of the free and the home of the brave. This is supposed to be one man, one vote. Why are you trying to reduce access to the polls and reduce access to early voting? I would think that you would come with better policies. I would think that you would come with people to talk to the African American community about how your policies are going to be better for African Americans than Democrats. That's what I thought that you would do. But no, what you want to do is restrict access to the polls. The top legislative priority in 2021, calling, among other things, for a reduction in the number of days of early voting. Jason Miller, a top Trump advisor, told the conservative site Just the News that Trump plans to remain involved in quote unquote voting integrity efforts. That's laughable. Keeping the issue at the top of Republicans' minds. And Vote Riders, a nonprofit group that helps prospective voters get an ID if they need one to cast a ballot, said it is expecting a serious push for new voter IDs, new voter ID laws in at least 5 states, while North Carolina could potentially implement new voter ID policies that have been held up in court. Now, voter ID laws are usually very popular among the general public. A 2018 Pew Research poll found that 3/4 of Americans surveyed supported laws requiring voters to present a photo ID, but activists say they are problematic for several disparate groups of voters, which is true. They are students and other young people. They're communities of color. They're older adults who are no longer driving, people with low income, people with disabilities, said Kathleen Unger, the founder of Vote Riders. Vote Riders estimated that up to 25 million voting age Americans lacked a government-issued photo ID. Vote Riders estimated that up to 25 million voting age Americans lacked a government-issued photo ID. Now, Georgia Republicans in particular are intensely focused on their state's election laws after the state became the epicenter of Trump's attempts to undermine confidence in the 2020 election results. Georgia Republicans have proposed a bevy of changes, from imposing limits on who can vote by mail to limiting the use of drop boxes, which allow people to return absentee ballots without using the postal system. Once again, now look at this. Now, you have to ask yourself the question, well, if the African American vote doesn't matter, why are they talking about changing all these laws to suppress largely the African American vote? If Republicans think their policies are better for African Americans than Democrats, then why aren't they competing for our vote? Why are they trying to suppress it? Why aren't they talking about how their policies are going to create more jobs and how you're gonna increase your wealth and we're going to make college affordable and we're going to focus on criminal justice reform. We're going to pass the George Floyd Police and Justice Act. We're going to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. You were going to raise the minimum wage, the federal minimum wage, to $15 an hour because that bill passed the House of Representatives in like July 2019. Democrats passed that. Why aren't they talking about policies that are beneficial to African Americans? Why aren't they talking about fighting against white supremacy and racism? Why aren't they focused on fighting against white domestic terrorism, things like that? Why aren't they focused on that? They're focused on making it harder for us to vote. Okay. So Georgia Republicans have proposed a bevy of changes, from imposing limits on who can vote by mail to limiting the use of drop boxes, which allow people to return absentee ballots without using the postal system. The Republican State Senate caucus has endorsed ending no excuse absentee voting in Georgia, which was disproportionately used by Democratic voters in 2020. More than 1/3 of Biden's votes in Georgia were cast by mail versus just 18% of Trump's votes. More than 1/3 of Biden's votes in Georgia were cast by mail versus just 18% of Trump's votes. Republican Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, who has rejected Trump's fraud claims, also said he supported scrapping no excuse mail voting because the system was too taxing on local election administrators. Okay, read the rest of this article here. I just find it very interesting. So when any of these black conservatives come at you talking about vote for Republicans or things like that, ask them, why are they trying to make it harder for us to vote? Why are they trying to suppress our vote? Why aren't they talking about policies and how their policies are more beneficial for African Americans? Why aren't they talking about that? I already know the answer, but that's the question you should ask these people trying to con us. A lot of these black conservatives running around talking this nonsense. These are questions we should ask them. Why why aren't you all holding a press conference denouncing this BS that Republicans are doing? Also, why aren't you doing that? Because you're too damn scared. That's why. Because you know if you do that, the funding is gonna stop coming to your ass. That's why you won't do it. When I was on Roland Martin Unfiltered, I asked F. Lee Francis of the Federalist Society. This was before let me see. I think it was after the November 3rd election. It was after, because he admitted Joe Biden won. And he's African American. I gave him that credit. I gave him credit for that. At least he admitted it. But I said, you have Trump and you have Republicans trying to overturn election results of African Americans. They're trying to do it in Detroit. They're trying to do it in Milwaukee, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Atlanta. I said, when are you black conservatives going to hold a press conference to denounce what your party is doing? You told African Americans to vote for Republicans. Now they're trying to disenfranchise and overturn the African American vote. When y'all going to hold a press conference? He couldn't tell me. Because they're not going to do that. They're not going to bite the hand that feeds them. They know once they do that, the checks are going to stop coming in. All right. Let me see. Okay, lastly, check this out from Washington Post. Trump's false or misleading claims total 30,573 over 4 years. I mean, talk about, black people couldn't get away with no stuff like this. President Obama couldn't get away with 1/20th of the stuff Trump has done. He would have been in prison. Trump's false or misleading claims total 30,573 over 4 years. You have some Republicans that want to impeach President Obama for wearing a tan suit during Easter. Y'all remember that? They damn near had a fit. June 24th, 2021. Okay. So check this out. They go through, they categorize all his claims. They break all this stuff down. Check this out from the Washington Post. Okay. Sit down when you read it. It's going to be a good laugh for you. Okay. Sit down when you read it. It's going to be a good laugh. All right. So, hey, you can register for my online course. It's going to start up Wednesday, February 3rd, 2021, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's going to be each Wednesday, 8 consecutive Wednesdays, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. And then I'm here doing our show at 11 p.m. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. We do 1,000 years of history. We know we're going into African American History Month. We do 1,000 years of history, and we do what led up to the transatlantic slave trade happening. There's bonus content. As soon as you register, you can start watching the bonus content. It's regularly $130. It's on sale $80. You can watch from around the world. We do the classes live. It's at our online school, and then you can ask questions during the class through the chat. And then you can go back and watch the sessions over and over again. Also, if there's anything you missed, you can go back there. They're archived there. So you can go back and watch them over and over again as well. Okay. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Also at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, right on the homepage, you can register there as well. All right, look, we got to get out of here. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now, it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you tomorrow night. Peace.